I'd like to welcome the viewers of Sports Ed TV to a very interesting interview today with Coach Mike Burgener. We also have with us the CEO of Sports Ed TV, Victor Bergonzoli, who trained as a weightlifter in his youth. And I'm Harvey Newton. I've got a couple of years in the sport as well. But, had a nice chance recently to reconnect with Coach Burgener, get an overview of how things are going for him right now. Mike, I'd say you're certainly, you've had a huge influence on the sport over the last several decades. And I wondered if you might give us a sort of a, take your time, but a good review of yourself as an athlete, as a coach, as an administrator, and as an educator. You've done a lot.
I would tell you that I started my Olympic weightlifting career while I was a student at the University of Notre Dame. I played football on the Fighting Irish football team under a famous coach by the name of Ara Parsegian. May his soul rest in peace. But Ara, coming into Notre Dame, I was about a 165-pound athlete, very fast and very explosive. But Ara wanted me to be about 180 to 185 pounds. So he took me down to at that time, you didn't have the big weight rooms that you do today, but he took me down to a 1,500 square foot weight room that was built and developed by Father BHB Lang at Notre Dame, who was my first weightlifting coach. And Father Lang taught me the clean and press, which was one of the movements back in that time period, the snatch and the clean and jerk. So as the story goes, and I tell it, I went from 165 pounds to 182 pounds. My 40 time went from a 4.55 down to a 4.45, and I was much more explosive. I could dunk a basketball, and this was, all because of, in my opinion, all because of the Olympic weightlifting and the other types of strength training that we did at that time.
And let me ask you a question, because, I know youngsters in particular always think, if I'm going to gain weight, get some big muscles, I just need to lift weights. A lot of people lift weights and never get big muscles. I'm going to guess you had a training table that was helping you a little bit with the calories. Right.
Exactly. Now, very typical Olympic style weightlifting, unless you're going to eat yourself into another weight class, for me, I had never lifted weights before. My father wouldn't let me lift weights when I was growing up. And, but I did a lot of manual farm labor, and I had a job in a tire shop. And so I would change tractor tires and, those kind of things. So I did a lot of heavy working. And that was his way of, getting me strong. And I certainly got strong in the core by doing stuff like that. But until I really went to Notre Dame and focused on squatting, pressing, bench pressing, dumbbell bench pressing, working those, back extensions, those heavy muscular, muscle group exercises, I didn't gain weight. And my dad was a dairy farmer. So, I drank a lot of whole milk, whole raw milk, nice. But I was 165 pounds forever. That's the way I was. But I was very active, and I ran track in high school, and so I burned a lot of calories as well. So, but going to Notre Dame, you're right. I had a training table. I had the weight room. We had organized practice. I had Father Lang's coaching, so it was very easy for me to go up in another weight class to 182 and become bigger, stronger, and faster, so to speak.
You and I first met in the 198-pound class. You won't remember it. I was at the bottom of the heap, and you were on the podium in Long Island, New York.
Oh yeah, Long Island. Oh my God, that brings back a lot of memories.
My first time seeing you on the platform. Did a great job. So you also spent time at Kentucky.
Yes. Yeah, I was the strength coach at the University of Kentucky.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, John Ray was my coach at Notre Dame. And so when he got the head coaching job at the University of Kentucky, he asked me to come in with him and work the strength program. And he was like way before his time. He was even before Bob Devaney and Boyd Epley at Nebraska. So this was in, a very early time of weightlifting. Not a lot of people were lifting weights. And in fact, of all the schools that I was recruited, Notre Dame was the only school that had a weight room. And that was a self-funded weight room by a Catholic priest. So he asked me to come in and design their weight program and build their weight room, and he gave me carte blanche to do that. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. But I wasn't, even though I was a strength coach, I really wasn't a paid strength coach. I was a paid graduate assistant. So being a graduate assistant was a lot different than being a strength coach today. Even though my job responsibilities were the same, my pay wasn't very good. I think I got like $300 a month or something like that for being a strength coach.
Were you taking classes at the same time? Were you a student?
Yeah, okay. I got my master's degree in exercise physiology. So that was a benefit for it, and but then that staff was let go, and I was asked to stay on Fran Kersey's staff from Tampa, Florida, and I chose not to do that, but nevertheless, it was a great experience for me.
Good. And then you evolved out of coaching, out of competing, to a little bit of coaching in an unofficial capacity. When was your last competition? I remember Cincinnati Opens and things like that in the 1971-72 era.
Right. That was 1971, 72 was probably my last competition. I have an interesting story. I don't know if you want to cover it or not, but I was in the Marine Corps while I was at Notre Dame. I was in a program called the PLC program. Right. And in 1966, I blew out my knee at Notre Dame. And even though I joined the Marine Corps in 1965 as part of this PLC program, the Marine Corps chose to give me an honorable discharge, from the PLC program. I'm probably the only guy in history of the Marine Corps that's gotten 3 honorable discharges.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. And so in 66, I blew out my knee, and so I got an honorable discharge. In 67, I rejoined the Marine Corps again, the same PLC program. And then the football season of 67, I blew out my knee again. So I got another honorable discharge, if you can believe it. And then in 1971, while I was a student at Kentucky, I went down to the student union, and the Marine recruiters were there, and they said, I told them my story, and I said, I've got 2 honorable discharges from the Marine Corps. And they said, well, how'd you like to have a third? And I said, I don't. And at this time, I was at probably 100 kilos, right? And I said, I don't think you guys would want a fat weightlifter. He says, no, go down and take the physical, and we'll see if you can get in, and we'll have you coach the Quantico Marines in football. And I said, you're kidding me, seriously. And he says, yeah, we'll guarantee you to coach the Quantico Marines. So I went over to Louisville and took the physical and passed with glowing colors. And even though I was a 1F or 4F or whatever it was at that time, I signed up for the Marine Corps again. So I joined the Marine Corps all over again and went through, OCS, TBS, and all that other stuff, and went to get my MOS. And they asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, is there anything other than infantry? And they went on and they said, yeah, you can do this, this, and this. And I said, nah, we're all brainwashed anyway. So I said, yeah, give me infantry. And then after I graduated, I got my orders, and it said Camp Pendleton. And I said, wait a minute.
What happened to Quantico?
What happened to Quantico? And he says, oh, gee, sorry, Lieutenant, that, we just disbanded the program. So there I am. I'm
6-year commitment.
I've got my commitment. I'm heading to Camp Pendleton and the 1st Marine Division, so it was a great story. And, from there I was a little bit older than the normal 2nd lieutenant, so I ended up getting to go to a forced reconnaissance outfit. I hate the water. I had no desire to jump out of freaking airplanes. I was a grunt. I wanted to be a ground pounder. But this you know, the TOs, as you come into a unit, the TOs go out for the unit. And the guy that was in charge of First Force Reconnaissance Company was a guy by the name of Major Jim Williams. And Jim Williams was an Irishman, and he was a Notre Dame fan. And he saw my name on the TO's second lieutenant list, and he asked me to, he said, well, I want Burgener to come to him. So I got orders for First Force Reconnaissance, and I about crapped my pants, you know. And I'd never swum in the ocean before, for God's sake, you know. Anyway, it's a long story after that. But anyway, that's how. And then from there, you know, I met a blonde-haired beauty from California, and I was going to be a career Marine, and that stopped rather quickly, and became a school teacher and a coach, and you know, gosh, and this was now in 1979 or so, and I started becoming a strength coach at the high school level, you know, and then at that point we started developing our weightlifting team out of the high school level, and I was a strength coach for all sports at the high school level, so I was able to recruit kids.
Was this at Vista High School?
This was at Rancho Buena Vista High School, yes.
Okay.
Well, the first job I had was at Fallbrook High School, and then from Fallbrook I went to Missouri for a year, and then I came back and went to Carlsbad High School, and then Vista High School and Rancho Buena Vista High School. Right. And all those jobs were part of me becoming developing the strength coach as a strength coach. And this again was way before its time. I really, I would say in the whole United States, I was probably the only paid high school strength coach back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So I was very blessed. I was very, very lucky, you know, but, and my expertise was the Olympic lifts and strength training and building programs to aid in the development of athletes that hopefully would enhance performance and prevent injuries, basically.
You wound up, were you not also the golf coach at high school?
Well, I wasn't the last job I had in 1986. The guy by the name of Alan Johnson was the principal at Rancho Buena Vista High School. They just built a brand new high school, and he asked me what it would take for me to come over there and develop their weight room for him, and so I told him my plans, what I had and what I wanted. And I had a 2,500 square foot, 3,000 square foot weight room. Wow. And I told him that this is the company I wanted to deal with. These are my requirements. And I said I wanted 9 Olympic platforms, you know, the 8x8, you know, right, platforms. And I wanted Olympic bars and Olympic sets on each platform. And he said, done. He said, you can have that. And I said, and no, by the way, I love golf. And so if you want me to come over there bad enough, you'll make me the golf coach. And he said, you really strike a hard bargain. He says, I've got about 10 coaches waiting in line for that golf job. And I said, well, I've got a good job here at Vista High School. I'll just stay here if you can't make that happen. He said, we'll make it happen. So I moved to Rancho Buena Vista High School. I became the head golf coach, and I was the head strength coach, and I coached strength training in high school physical education for 5 hours a day. And then before school and after school, I worked with the high school sports programs and all of their athletes. And I was a paid coach. My salary was the same as an athletic director's salary. You know, which really pissed off the head football coach and all the other head coaches of these major sports. But luckily for me, the principal understood the benefit of strength training. My athletic director loved my disciplined approach. He loved what I did at Vista High School. And so I really pretty much had a carte blanche of whatever I wanted to do, both in the classroom and with my sports team. So I was a very blessed guy.
I remember some years ago, I was out on the West Coast for some reason, and I swung by and saw one of your classes. I was very impressed. It's around the time of the NSCA, and
yeah,
so you were also the high school coordinator for high school coaches in the NSCA, and you were on the board of directors when I first came in as the exec director. So we sort of had a chance to rekindle an old friendship at that point. You and I talked throughout my NSCA days. And you told me about, as I was getting ready to leave in '99, you told me about this thing called CrossFit. And I said, what is this? And all I ever remember you telling me was, we're going to have people doing 30 power cleans with 135 pounds. And I said, why? And you said, well, it'll be a character building experience.
I remember that conversation so well. It's amazing because it all centered itself around a black box. I don't know if you remember that or not. It's the black box. I mean, the way Glassman explained it to me, it was like, you know, we're going to put 100 workouts in this, you know, bingo hopper,
right.
And you're going to draw these workouts out, and we're going to ask these athletes to do the workouts. And he had this unique way of naming the workouts. And so he had, 100 clean and jerks, or, you know, as many clean and jerks as you can get, or whatever it was, Grace and Isabel, 30 clean and jerks. It's like, and I'm going, God, that doesn't make any sense at all. These guys are just hate me, you know, Jesus. You know, because I'm really technique oriented and all this other stuff. But the bottom line is that we weren't doing a very good job in USA weightlifting of getting athletes into our sport of weightlifting. And I saw it as a way, you know, the way Glassman explained it to me and what he wanted to do, the development that he wanted to take into that. I saw it as a way to be able to recruit kids of parents that really brought into the CrossFit mentality.
That's true. And,
And, you know, and I don't know what it is, but there's something enticing about being, after a workout, about being in a fetal position, not being able to move. Not for me, but for these CrossFit athletes, it was like, that was like the mark of a great person and an athlete. And I'm going, I think they're freaking crazy personally. But the bottom line was, my philosophy was at the time, okay, these people are going to come in and they're going to have kids. And if they really buy into CrossFit, then these kids are going to be able to want to do these exercises too. And Glassman loved the Olympic lifts. He loved gymnastics. He loved the Olympic lifts. He loved the snatch. He loved the clean and jerk. And he made that part of CrossFit. And then I saw it as an opportunity and potential opportunity for a recruiting tool for USA weightlifting.
Well, I think it worked to a great extent. CrossFit has certainly stretched the boundaries of USA weightlifting.
Right.
And I wanted to have you tell us a little bit about the impact that's had, because if you and I had that conversation around 2000, it was probably 8 years later that I finally was teaching a U.S. weightlifting course, and I had 5 people from CrossFit, all from the same box in the front row for 2 days. And I finally had a chance to talk to them and say, what is CrossFit? How does this work?
Right.
And it's around that time that I realized Mike Burgener's name was starting to expand a good bit in the universe. So how was that impact of CrossFit adopting weightlifting and Mike Burgener? How's that changed your life?
Oh my God. I'm a basic dumbass, Harvey. You know that. I mean, I don't know anything, but one of the things that I did at Notre Dame is that Father Lang had this warm-up that he'd always have us perform before all the workouts, and it consisted of 5 exercises, and you know, we changed it around a little bit, but it was Olympic weightlifting oriented. He had us doing a lot of jumping exercises, box jumps and things like that. And so I, you know, from the time at Notre Dame all the way through my development as a strength coach and as an athlete, I did this warm-up of the 5 exercises, and then we incorporated 5 more different exercises, you know, and we put them for the squat style lifters, and we put them for the split style lifters, and we developed this program. And I used that program every place I went, but we never had a name for it. And when Glassman came down, and he took my club coaching course for USA Weightlifting. He wanted to know what the name of this warm-up was. And I had my students, the kids through my lifetime will remember this warm-up, but we didn't have a name for it. And so my daughter, classmate, says, well, what do you call this warm-up? And I said, hell, I don't know. I've never had a warm-up for it. And my daughter, Sage, says, well, Daddy, call it the Burgener warm-up.
Yep.
So Sage called it the Burgener warm-up. And I said, yeah, we can call it the Burgener warm-up. That's the only reason anybody knows me in CrossFit is because of the Burgener warm-up. And it's just like, it's like, okay, we developed this warm-up. And whatever I teach my courses, my CrossFit weightlifting courses in that level 1 course, that's a big part of my warm-up. And we did that every single day. Remember, I was raised on Ara Parseghian, Vince Lombardi, Bear Bryant, those guys that work the fundamentals and the discipline and the skills and drills of football every single day, 15 minutes a day. We work the same drills and skills every single day. So all I did, even back at Notre Dame with Father Lang, we did this warm-up every single day. And all of a sudden, we found that the kids that we were training, even at Notre Dame and at Kentucky and in my high school, if we did this every day along with jumping exercises, they got better faster. And they learned the basic fundamentals. And we gave them a warm-up protocol, and they started having fun. And then you have the idiots that will take PVC pipe and then try to do the warm-up with the bars, and it's way too heavy. So we developed a progressive overload where we filled the PVC pipes full of sand, and we did the warm-up and the skill transfer exercises, as we called them. And then we put rebar in the PVC pipe, and we gradually overloaded that warm-up protocol until they became so strong and comfortable that we never asked them to do more than a 15-kilo bar for the men or for the ladies and 20-kilo bar for the men. But they got where they're very adept in doing those drills, and we found that their levels of expertise became higher and higher and higher. And we started looking at, just the way people were moving, and it became so much better. And I think when I started doing courses with CrossFit, all I really did, the first portion of the course, was teach a physical education class. That's all I was doing. I was teaching them the fundamentals for me, and the way I believe were stance, grip, and positions. That was my lesson plan. Those were the fundamentals of my teaching. I always felt like what Steve Goff told me years and years ago, that 90% of all missed lifts can be attributed to the feet. So I started everything with the stance. We taught them how to grip. We just didn't, that we gave them 2 or 3 different methods, that I used with USA Weightlifting in their journal, with how to get the grip width, how you get that squared away, where the bar needed to be overhead. And then we started working on what I used was 6 different positions. We started teaching those positions. We taught the Burgener warm-up as drills and skills. We taught the skill transfer exercises as part of our drills and skills. And then we just blossomed out from there. And all it was creating a lesson plan that had goals and objectives to it. And it was a 5-paragraph order that I learned in the Marine Corps that kept me on track of making sure that we stayed attached to the duty that we were going to be attached to. And like anything else, you had to make adjustments on the fly. And we did that. But those 5 exercises on the Burgener warm-up and those 5 exercises on the skill transfer exercises gave us a game plan for being able to look at, coach, evaluate, and then taking those exercises and break them down and put them into a workout program based on yaw snatch, clean and jerk, squats, but then based on weaknesses that the athlete had, we could insert those other exercises into the program, even though the athlete had been doing them every single day, as part of their warm-up protocol. So it just worked out. It was nothing more than a 5-paragraph order, basically.
Well, and somehow it became very popular. I mean, I've often said about CrossFit and other sports, I've not seen a lot of CrossFitters decide to go into rowing. I've not seen too many of them decide to go into gymnastics.
Right.
But an awful lot of them went into weightlifting.
They found out how fun it was to go to a weightlifting contest. And I'll tell you the other thing too. You go to a weightlifting contest on a local level that's held at Friday and you have the beginning lifters there that aren't very good. This is the first meet. How many people do you see in the stands? Right? You know that scenario. You go to a beginning weightlifting contest where CrossFitters have come in, even at the very first weight class, the freaking stands are packed.
Yeah.
And guess what? Everybody is cheering.
Yeah.
They're just going nuts. And I mean, this person is using the barbell for the first attempt on the snatch, and they've got little blocks that they're lifting off of. And the kid might be 8 years old, you know, and it became an overnight sensation because, you know, that fetal position became tiring. They didn't like that as much. But when you start lifting a weightlifting contest and you got to be able to do whatever your heavy snatch is, your heavy clean and jerk, and you're earning a medal and people in the stands are cheering for you, it really was fun. You know that, and I know that, but you know,
you introduced a great number of people to the sport, and then I guess what I saw along the way was, and of course, U.S. weightlifting was riding the crest at the same time.
Right.
People wanted to know a lot more about how to do this properly.
Right.
And I've often mentioned to players at U.S. weightlifting, I think one of their earlier ideas was to have lift-specific sessions, maybe 4 weeks in a row, 4 weekends in a row, rather than trying to train coaches. Because I always, when I get to a U.S. weightlifting coaching course, 2 questions I'd ask first. How many of you have ever seen a weightlifting competition?
Yeah.
A couple hands go out of 30 people, maybe 5.
Yeah.
That number has increased. But my second question was, how many of you in 6 months expect to be weightlifting coaches? And no hands went up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were there to learn how to snatch and clean and jerk.
Right.
So I saw this great demand that U.S. weightlifting was not providing, I don't think, as directly as they could have.
Yeah.
But they were making a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really cared at that point what I had to say, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it still gets back to most of these folks from CrossFit where there's a mystery to the lifts, especially the snatch.
Yeah.
And I would get to the point of asking people, how many of you have snatched your own body weight, male or female?
Oh, yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
How many of you have cleaned and jerked your own body weight?
Yeah.
I worked with some CrossFit, largely CrossFit guys who came to weightlifting. And they came down, trained with me for a week at my house. And at the end of the week, we went out for lunch. And these guys were training twice a day, 2.5-hour sessions. And I said, I don't mean anything by this, but at 15, in your weight class, I was outlifting you. And at 100 kilos in your weight class, I was outlifting you. And I was much weaker than either of you two are.
Yeah.
What's the deal here? I really like the fact that you love the sport, but you come from CrossFit, I think, with a great basis for general strength.
Right.
And one of the things I'd like to have you address at some point, Mike, would be, I still want to see how you expanded your empire into so much education and get your house paid off, as we discussed the other day. But there's also, it seems to me, to be a huge impact, or a larger impact perhaps, on the females who are coming from CrossFit to U.S. weightlifting. And in the males, it may be at the master's level, but the females seem to be much better prepared when they come to weightlifting. And they take off rather quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, it's you know, first of all, let go back and look at what our course objectives are. You know, my course objectives on CrossFit Weightlifting at this time was the goals and objectives of the courses is to teach teachers and coaches how to teach. How to teach a 40-year-old housewife how to safely snatch, clean, and jerk. That's what our goals and objectives are. Now we've kind of moved around a little bit. We still say those are the same goals and objectives, but we add then our goals and objectives is to teach teachers how to coach and perform in a safe, efficient, and effective manner. So our goal is to produce, coaches that can go back to their boxes and
Yeah.
teach beginners
Yeah.
how to move and how to snatch properly.
That
So very
became
first,
that became sort of the second wave, I think, that came out of these courses. Was now we do have coaches. I mean, as you said earlier, we've coached for years,
right,
but there was never a profession for coaching.
right,
Now there is,
right.
and you know, your goals and objectives are very similar to what we have at Sports Ed TV, trying to teach the basics, get
Right.
people online, learn some things you may not have been able to learn otherwise.
Right. Yeah, the fundamentals for me were ingrained back at my Notre Dame days and, you know, in the Marine Corps. So fundamentals, drills, and skills, you know, coming up with goals and objectives are very, very important to the program based on what you're trying to do. Anybody can write goals and objectives, but if it's not tied into what your curriculum is and what you're trying to do, then it's going to be helter-skelter, and it really doesn't work itself into the proper format that we're looking for. Yeah. But, you know, it's funny, the very first course I did with Glassman, there were 50 first responders. There were Marines, Navy SEALs, there were a lot of firefighters, police officers, and we went up to the University of Colorado up in Golden, Colorado, and we did this course. And there wasn't one person, not one, that could do an overhead squat with PVC pipe. Huh. And then, you know, but that's where we started. And then, you know, and it was funny because I'll never forget the look on Glassman's face. This was even before the CrossFit courses have come out. This guy wanted Glassman to come up and work with CrossFitters, or not even CrossFitters. He wanted him to work with these first responders with his philosophy, because CrossFit initially he was trying to sell the workout programs to the government.
Right.
For him, you know, the story. But anyway, so we got up there, and I'm looking at these guys, and I'm going, oh shit, what am I going to do with these guys? I said, you know what? I'm going to be Mike Burgener, the school teacher. Yep. And that's all I did. You know, I became back, and I taught my classes like a Marine platoon, a company. And, you know, we taught them the basics. We taught them the Burgener warm-up. We taught them the skill transfer exercises. I only had 3 hours. But anyway, Glassman payment for that course was $8,000. That's what he got. The guy made $25,000. So he charged $500 for 50 people, and he paid Glassman $8,000. And that $8,000 was to get all of us trainers out to Colorado. And of course, I didn't get a paycheck, but you know, I was hell yeah, I'll go. That'll be fun. I get to go to Colorado Springs and see Casey, and one of my kids that I was working with was Aaron Akanek and Amy Everett, and you know, they came over and helped us out and doing all that kind of stuff. But Glassman went back, and about 2 weeks later, he called me up and says, "We're going to start doing courses at Santa Cruz." I said, "Yeah, you are. What's up?" And he told me, he says, "How much are you going to charge me to come up and do your 3-hour presentation?" And I said, "Coach, I don't know. I'm not, you know, I don't do this stuff for money." He said, "Okay, you know, we'll see how it goes." And so I helped every month. I'd go up there and I'd ride my Harley up to Santa Cruz and teach 3 hours and spend 3 days having fun watching people get into a fetal position and you know, and then every day, every time I go up there, he'd hand me an envelope, and I'd take it and put it in my pocket, and it was always cash. Hell, my wife thought I was a genius, man. That first year, I made $18,000 coaching, and it was all cash, and I couldn't believe it. You know, then all of a sudden, he says, "We're going to do away with the 3-day course." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I know you love weightlifting, so I'm still going to be involved." And he says, "No, we're going to drop you guys." I'm going, "Oh my God." So I said, "Well, Coach, I appreciate being involved for the year that you've let me in." He said, No, you don't get it. We're going to ask you to develop your course, and we're going to allow you to set up, schedule all the courses that you want to schedule." I said, "Coach, no one's going to want to come to this stuff." He says, "Nah, I think with the development of CrossFit that we've got now, you know, I mean, we've got this affiliate program now going, and It cost $50 a year to do the affiliate program. Now it's like $3,000 a year.
Right.
But nevertheless, you know, he says, no, I think you're going to be okay. So he started this certification program, and part of it was CrossFit weightlifting.
Yeah.
So no one knew how to teach the lifts. So, I mean, my first year of doing this stuff, I did 5 coaching courses. Harvey, I mean, I made 50 grand, and God almighty, I had no clue what the hell I was doing with it. And, you know, and I got my 1099, and the gal said, I said 50 grand. I'm going, what? Because I just took the checks and put them in the bank. I didn't know what the hell to do with it. So I never kept track of it. And I said, 50 grand? Holy shit. So I called her and I said, I think you made a mistake. And she went back and checked it out, and she said to me, no, you're right. I'm sorry you're pissed off that you made so much money, Mike. So from that time on, I kept my mouth shut.
You were still teaching at that point.
I was still teaching. You know, I'm a school teacher. And then the next year, that was in 2000, and when I did those 5, that was in 2007. And 2008, I took all that money and threw it into my house payment. In 2008, I retired from teaching because I paid off my house. And that year, I had my knee replaced. I did 10 coaching courses. You can follow the math on this one. The next year, I did 40 coaching classes, 40, all by myself.
Really?
Hell, I lost weight. I got sick. I mean, I was traveling all over the freaking world doing this stuff. Started going to Australia. I met Matt Swift down there. Met the Australian coaching establishment. Went to New Zealand. Hell, I've been all over the world teaching this stuff, and it's all because of CrossFit. And you know, it's been a dream come true, and we've been very blessed.
Bring the whole family into this project as well.
Now, Burgener Strength is run by my son Bo and Sage. You know, I'm basically retired. I'll do 3 or 4 coaching courses a year. If we do this online stuff, I'll do those for them. And but you know, I do Instagram, our podcast, basically Instagram Live, and people get on and ask me questions about stuff. And even to this day, I don't even charge people for coming up to the house. And anybody that wants help with the Olympic list, and that's, we'll do that for them and stuff. It's part of the educational process.
You still have Mike's gym as such?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mike's gym is my 2-car garage, and it's got 4 platforms in it. And it's a lot like Tim Swords' gym over in Houston. And, it's just a, garage gym is all it is. But hell, I've got more. I got more bumper plates and bars than I'll ever need. Hell, now I don't have anybody that can lift them.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I was talking to Derek Krass recently. He just recently, he and Ann moved here. And I said, hey, you want some of your weights back? Actually, he said, do you have some redundancy in your weights? And I said, oh, yeah. Gathering too much dust and rust. So, yeah, we have to get them somewhere else.
Yeah.
But, you mentioned to me the other day, Mike, that you've had calls from places like India, people wanting to know it. One of the things we've seen with Sports Ed TV, Victor ran some numbers looking at February and March. How many people from how many countries were taking up weightlifting? Usually number 1, 2, or 3 video we have is how to clean and jerk. And Victor is going to address more of that. But we've seen this tremendous amount of interest from India, not only in weightlifting, but also the other sports that Sports Ed TV currently have in place. Victor, you want to talk a little bit about that and the impact?
Well, it's just amazing. When we started Sports Ed TV, we're like, US, Western Europe, and it was a big surprise to see a country like India really becoming number 1 in our viewers. And we're over 500,000 now in unique visitors per month. Wow. And we really launched the website in July. And what I love is, I was a weightlifter growing up as a kid. I'm half Hungarian. My uncle is an international referee and brought us into the sport. And in Switzerland, weightlifting was not very popular. You had a few gyms, and I was lucky enough to find one. And
Michael Brule.
Yeah, Michel Boyer.
Yeah.
Michel Boyer was, our star. And I remember meeting him. I was 14 when I met him. He came to the club and it was a living God for us. But anyway, there was no CrossFit then. And I'm so happy, for CrossFit to bring weightlifting as a popular sport. Without CrossFit, and that's worldwide. I was speaking to my brother, he's still the president of the club in Lausanne, and he was the vice president of the Swiss Federation for a while. But they all say CrossFit really made weightlifting a very popular sport.
Right.
And what I really like is when you look at the data, not only, we have all these wonderful Indian athletes following us. And I lived 2 years in New Delhi, so maybe I have an opinion about, I love India. But anyway, what I see is you have more females than males, young females, like young women in their 20s, really competitive, which I didn't have growing up. Weightlifting was a sport for men.
Right.
And I have a question for you, Mike, is do you see a difference in how you teach the lift, for a beginner, if you're a woman or if you're a man? Is there any difference, or do they go through the same program?
Well, for me personally, I'd rather coach women. Because a woman, other than my wife, will typically listen to you. They want the information. They want to be safe, and they're very analytical. So you give the woman a game plan, and you let that woman. All of a sudden she starts trusting you, and then the word gets out. Oh my God. The women are much easier for me to work with than a bull your neck and bubble your snot guy, so for me, it's a no-brainer. I would rather work with the women. My daughter Sage is a great example of that. She's so technically efficient, and then the women are good at stuff like that. And so all it does for me is, because women are getting involved in a weightlifting strength training program, their confidence levels and their womanhood levels, womanhood levels have just skyrocketed. It gives them more confidence. They see these CrossFit athletes and the women Olympians, how good they look, how strong they are. And then you take a look at all the other sports. The beauty of sports ed is being able to bring all these sports together and utilize weightlifting not only as a sport, but as a trainer to help them, help prevent injury and enhance performance. Part of that. So sports ed, you guys are really on the brink of exploding, and India is hungry for information. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the world is hungry. We see, Latin America is very hungry. And of course the US, we have a lot of people from the US. But based on the numbers, you have 1.2 billion Indians, and it's just amazing. And I really love what you said for women. As you know, my years at Dartfish, the best coaches we had analyzing techniques were female coaches.
Yep.
You look at softball versus baseball, for instance. No egos. They wanted to learn. Right. We have these man egos. Testosterone makes us stupid. I always say that. Yeah. And these women were so smart. They really wanted to understand the technique. And so I see what you say for weightlifting.
I'll tell you about the women too. I was lucky enough to be the junior world team coach for women for about 8 or 9 years. And one of the things, and when they told me I was going to be coaching the women's team, I'm going, there is no way. These guys are not going to like my Marine philosophy or my Marine Corps style of coaching, athletes. And this was back early. This is like in 2000 or whatever. And I will tell you, I trained those girls chesty puller style. And, I absolutely was going to make them cry. I was going to make them do all this other stuff to prove to them that they weren't tough enough. After one day, they softened me up. They brought me a chesty puller doll. And then they brought me a book of the history of the Marine Corps. And they were so ready for my Marine Corps drill instructor philosophy. They did everything that I asked them to do, and they were 10 times tougher than the men.
Ever. Oh, yeah.
So they're really, I mean, the women lifters that I've coached have just been absolutely amazing. And they're extremely loyal too. When they trust you, they're very loyal to you too.
Nice.
It's interesting how that all this has come together and had such a big impact. We've got I hope, what's a temporary situation right now. How are you dealing, Mike, with the global pandemic and the impact on training, on education, on competition, the whole 9 yards? Everything's been turned upside down in the last 6 months.
Yeah. Well, for us, it's, we hold, last week we held 2 Zoom classes on our online training course, which we certify, and you get CEU units for through CrossFit. And last year we were in South America and we were in the United States. And the beauty of doing our online Zoom courses is that I have coaches from all over the world taking our courses. I've had coaches from Beijing. Our coach starts at 9 o'clock in the morning U.S. time. Well, hell, that's like midnight in Beijing and Australia and those places. But we've had them come all over. Our goals and objectives stay the same. We don't get the coaching aspect of it as much as we would like. But, we're working on the drills, the skills, the fundamentals. And, people love it. So we've been able to do that. We haven't been able, the competitions that USA Weightlifting's canceled all the competitions, obviously, and we're hoping that will come back, and we believe it will. Hopefully, I don't know when the next one for us is. I know that they canceled the national championships, and it's now going to be held in Georgia.
Well, even the rescheduling of the Olympic Games themselves, that's pretty well dictated. And Japan and the IWF were a little late coming to the table on that. But once they made that decision, it's going to follow up some athletes and coaches. It's also going to help some people.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, Harvey, you know this. What's the one thing that we've been taught as Marines is you improvise, adapt, and overcome. It's just what it is. I'm not going to piss and moan about it. I'm going to, tell me what my marching orders are and let me have a little bit of rope and I'll get it done. And that's just basically what has to happen.
And technology is a big help. You mentioned Zoom. What we have seen on SportsEd TV is a huge spike, a 50% increase month to month of our viewers, because people want to learn. And they find, and learning and watching a video is not the same as taking a class that you offer. So we really want to be complementary to offerings like yours, where people learn good fundamentals and then they want to go one step further and reach out to you. But yes, technology is amazing and it's much simpler to use now. Look at this device. It's
amazing.
It's a computer.
The beauty of Sports Ed for me is that your platform is across all endeavors. You have all this information and now you can marry all those things together with the weightlifting aspect of it and the strength and conditioning part of it, and it's a no lose. You're going to, anybody that watches you and you're developing in the education of coaches to help the athletes, Sports Ed is just what it says. Sports education is really going to be a great thing for all the coaches, I think.
Harvey just wrote a blog on how weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting, and I know you don't like the term Olympic weightlifting, Harvey, but can help Taekwondo athletes, and it's just amazing. What needs to happen is what you both are preaching is to be able to showcase, you're a volleyball player. This is why, triple extension, the second pull will help you. This is, these are the benefits and this is how you can learn it safely. And sometimes even if you don't do the full, snatch or clean and jerk, but you can do part of the lift very safely. And when you look at the library that Harvey put together, I was amazed. We were filming and I'm like, we are sucking everything out of his brain in a few days of filming. It was very impressive. That's what you get when you work with experts such as,
Well, Harvey's an expert, I'll tell you that. He's really educated and he writes very prolifically. I've read just about everything he's ever put out there. So, you've got a good guy in your side there for sure. And he's a former Marine. I love that.
I know. I would have become a Marine if I'd been American back then.
Right. You're a Marine in our eyes.
That's right. Hey, Mike, I was going to say certainly that we're going to be out. Date yet to be determined. Depends on a lot of schedules, but we've just been talking with your friend Bob Titano up the road from you, and we're going to come out with a film crew and do some filming in hopefully late summer. And how far are you from him? I mean, it's an hour drive.
I'm not sure where Bob is. I think he's on more the north side of LA areas.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be a 2.5 hour drive, depending on whether the pandemic is still going on.
Yeah.
If the pandemic's going on, there will be no traffic. If it's not going on, there'll be a lot of traffic. So who knows? But yeah, I would say at least 2.5 hours, something like that.
Well, what we might consider doing is, depending on your schedule, and if you're jet setting around the globe, then we can't catch you. But if we might come up and grab some footage of you training maybe the geezers or another group out in the garage.
There's not much training. There's not much of me training anybody. It's like we're all working together and we're like, it's mass chaos. And most of us sit around and bullshit and talk anyway. It is geezer training. That's what we call it, geezer CrossFit. That's exactly what it is. But I tell you, one thing I'd tell you to do is get a hold of my daughter Sage and watch her. She's I think she's an up and coming developer or an up and coming coach in the weightlifting world. Of course, right now she's a single mom with 2 kids, so she's not doing a lot of. She's trying to work out and she's trying to make a living, and she's coaching athletes right now. But she's a hell of a coach. She's got her stuff together as well.
One of the things to consider there, I mean, you've seen some of the blog work that we've done, and we're looking at having some contributors who maybe once a quarter can send us in some, and we can do blog interviews. We can do it over the phone, or if she likes to write, we'd like to have a few more female coaches on board to assist. So, let her consider that the invitation is there. If she'd like to help with something like writing, it would help to further put out her name and the Burgener Strength brand.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to ask her about that. As soon as I said, yeah, she'll do it, you know how that shit goes.
I know,
right?
yeah, right.
You don't, yeah, no.
But
It's
it's like when we switched over from CrossFit Weightlifting, which I owned, to Burgener Strength, which Bo owns, my son Bo. So I'm an advisor now. And my daughter Sage says, Daddy, you're my assistant coach now. So, I mean, I'm 74 and I'm a daddy and I'm an assistant coach. So all the curriculum and everything belongs to me, but you'd never know it.
She sounds like my daughter. and mine is only 18.
Oh, you have just wait. It gets worse. And then when they give you grandkids, it's 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah. Because you do whatever they want, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
How can we further promote the Burgener family name and if we have someone watching this Zoom interview who would like to get a hold of you or get a hold of Sage or get a hold of anybody out there and learn more about what you're doing, what's our best way?
Yeah, you know what? I freely give out my email. It's my name, Mike Burgener, BURGENER @mac.com, MAC. I give out my phone number, believe it or not, 760-535-1835. They can call me. And I tell everybody this. My wife is a yard Nazi. She loves working in the yard. And so if I'm busy doing the jobs like this podcast and whatever, then I don't have to work in the yard. So I tell people, send me videos, send me questions, and God Almighty, it'll keep me out of the yard. I'll be glad to help you out.
You know that she's going to listen to that.
I know. So I'm going to be in trouble. You're always in trouble anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, certainly say hi to Leslie, and I know she's been a vital part of the package the whole time. So.
Oh yeah.
And I think she's in the background checking on you periodically.
Yeah, she is. She's my rock. I'm telling you, she's made our house a home. And if it wasn't for her, I mean, I got one responsibility, and that's Mike's gym. And then there's just to do whatever else she tells me to do. But for the most part, when you guys come out here, and hopefully you will, you have an open invitation. You'll see what I like to call the compound, and it's 99.9% hers, and other than that, the other 0.1% is Mike's gym.
Yeah. When I got married, my wife told me you can be happy or you can be right. I chose happiness.
And my two magic words that everybody says, it's yes, dear.
Yes.
I certainly appreciate your time today, Mike, and Victor as well. And Victor, any last minute questions or wrap up you want to do? Victor?
I'm good. You answered all my questions. Was very good. Thank you so much for giving us the time and giving us the history of how you brought weightlifting to CrossFit and how you brought weightlifting to the world, because CrossFit was just the platform for weight. Everybody knows weightlifting now. I mean, everywhere I go, people say, "Oh yes, snatch and clean and jerk," and that's just amazing. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mike.
for having me on too, guys. I really appreciate that.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Semper Fi, Harvey.
Semper Fi. Enjoy.
Take care.
Thank you.